Princess Cyd. So one of the cappers I gave myself when deciding to do movie tales was I wanted a time gap, or else I'd talk about literally movies that come out this week. I decided on 5 years. I think I could have done 10 or 20, but I think 5 years was better just because, there's a lot of stuff in the mid 2010s that are good. So I was like, let's talk about them. So 2017 is the year we can talk about. It's 2022. And I wanted to find a film that I haven't seen or really heard of, like something that could be obscure-ish and could really sink my teeth into and just enjoy and endure and see what comes about it. So I did some research and I found Princess Cyd. This was like a small release, independent-like film about a young woman she's 16, I think? Yeah, she's 16. She has some problems with her father. She goes to visit her aunt for the summer. And from that, these two kind of blossom a beautiful relationship about love, and they help each other explore the things in their life that give them impact and gratitude and all these kind of things. It's weird. And I say weird because this is exactly the kind of film I would normally really enjoy. I think it's beautifully shot. It looks cool. It's written really interestingly. But something about it, just something about this film, didn't hit the mark perfectly for me. I love what it's going for. It's just a quiet, soft film. It's like 96 minutes long. It's just a quiet, soft film about like exploring love in different circumstances. Like the aunt character is a writer named Miranda. She has published a bunch of books and she enjoys talking about religion and these challenges that she faces, discovering what it means to believe in something or discovering faith. And she enjoys having philosophical discussions and all that stuff. And because she has that focus, she never really had the need for romance or love. And you see Cyd, who's a young girl, and she's exploring her options in the world. She wants love. She wants romantic connections. She wants the sexual tension. And she just, having those characters clash, it's cool, but the way it does it isn't the most interesting thing you've seen. And that's okay. Not every film has to blow your mind. This one, I think, was just a soft story where it's like, yeah, here we go. There's some connection here. They start off not really getting along, and there's like the tension and differences, but they slowly learn to love each other because Cyd is learning new experiences and she's trying to come into her own as a young woman. That stuff really worked. I did like that. Jessie Pinnock, who I'm not familiar with any of her other work, if she's done anything else, her performance as Cyd, it's pretty good. Like, it's interesting, and she develops herself as like a young woman would, coming into her own and trying to like learn the world while still being mature in her setting. They let her do a lot of stuff that you wouldn't normally see from a 16-year-old, which I get it. I'm almost positive this girl's not 16. So I get why you do some stuff like that. But if you're looking at this from a certain objective, it's almost a little too hypersexualized, where this young woman at any moment is either finding a way to be the sexiest in the room, or she's finding a way to just spread herself out on a lawn and like be the object of the gaze of the viewer, and like having she is the only person who has multiple sex scenes in the movie where she's with two different people. That could get like really distracting and annoying, and I think it kind of does at times, where I found myself watching some of the sex scenes. I'm like, I get it. I don't think this needed to be as long as it was. I understand the emotional impact behind it, and I really do think that works, but I don't believe it was necessary for it to be drawn out that long. And that's kind of why I like the short runtime, because if this was any longer, it loses its quiet momentum. And I think that's really cool. So there's kind of like a relationship developing. Why I'm putting it under romantic tales is because the relationship that develops between Cyd and this other character, Katie, is surprisingly charming. I think it works really well. You see their meet cute at the beginning where she's lost and she walks through the coffee shop, and just slowly these two start to care about each other, and you see Cyd trying to figure out what kind of person she's dealing with here, both physically and emotionally, and you buy their relationship growing. Is it the coolest relationship you've seen on screen? I don't think so. I think, honestly, it's pretty simple, and it doesn't do that much to impress me, but not every relationship you see is like that. Sometimes you just meet a person, you have the connection, and you just start to hang out because of it. And that's what this felt like to me. It was less a coming-of-age film, which I was going into this expecting like a coming-of-age film where you're seeing this young woman's like exploring her sexuality, exploring what it means to like feel grown up in a world where she's been hurt before. It's more like a series of vignettes about her life in this one time she visited her aunt, where she's, hanging out with this person. She's hanging out at like a book club thing. She's doing these different adventures. And that's still cool, but it was just like, if this was a little bit more like emotional, because she has her big, moment with Katie, and then you really kind of like dive into her character a little bit, where her mother and brother were killed from a homicide. That doesn't play a big factor into her actual character. She is still pretty much like outgoing at every turn, and that kind of feels mixed in terms of a character, where if you felt like the need to make Katie the only person she expressed any actual sexual interest in, I think it'd work. But no, we see her at the beginning of the movie. She's kissing a guy when she lands in Chicago, or before she lands in Chicago. She hooks up with another guy before she hooks up with Katie. And it doesn't really work. It's weird, and I didn't really love it completely. Once again, a phenomenal job just portraying that kind of character, but that character itself doesn't feel like a real version of a person. It just feels like we're just going through the motions, and we're trying to have this be a love story without actually giving you the depth you need to feel the connection between these two. Katie's a fun character. She's not my favorite in the actual story. She serves a great purpose. Her look is incredible. I love the mohawk. It's very cool. And their relationship's great. But the surprise to me, which I really did like, was the role from Rebecca Spence here, just playing the older Miranda. I'm always fascinated when writers or anybody really talks about the industry they're in. So when you have a writer writing a story about a writer, you get a lot of bullshit thrown in there sometimes. And this one, there's a crisis of faith throughout half the book, where you see Miranda's trying to struggle with her identity and what it means. But there's some really cool moments that she does have. I really do like the moment where she's talking to Cyd, when Cyd makes a reference like, if you didn't eat so much, maybe you'd want to have sex. And she's like, I want you to listen to me very carefully. I get fulfillment from these other things. Like, I get fulfillment from hanging out with my book club. I get fulfillment from doing these other jobs and all this stuff. I do not have the need for these things that you do. That is a very powerful moment, and I think it worked really well, because it just establishes this is a certain woman. And it plays really well off of Cyd, where Cyd's questioning everything as she's listening to her aunt talk about stuff, and she's exploring her sexuality. You just see Miranda's like, no, I know what I want. There's a guy here that likes me. I don't have the need to like him. I don't feel that in my body, in my soul. If he explores other options, great. Good for him. He should. She does kind of come out of her shell a little bit throughout the movie, which is really cool to see. And I think that's important. You can push through all that stuff, but she's still certainly, without a shred of doubt, her own person, which is really cool to see. I do want to talk about this because I think it's very fascinating. The scene where we have like the soiree and it's the book club is really weird. And I think this could go either way for you. If you are a fan of just people talking about books, I get it. I'm not, however. I am not somebody who could, in the real world, even when I was in high school, I did not enjoy talking about the books we were forced to read or had to like present a passage that I enjoyed. That was just never me. And I think it was just because I feel strongly about a lot of stuff in that regards, but I don't need to sit in a circle and, just like have that experience of a bunch of people. I like doing this, but that's kind of the same thing. It's also different. So the book scene was a lot longer than you might be expecting. I think we hear like 4 different passages, and that was just like, okay, that's a little bit too much. Like, we don't need to have that many passages in this story. We know what's happening. It's working okay. You don't have to overextend it. We get it. You like reading. You're all a bunch of dorks. That's kind of fun. But you don't need it. And it wasn't that necessary. But I get it. It's so easy for a writer to want to talk about writing in their process. And a lot of the writing here did feel like that, where it just came across as like, yeah, we're having the experience. I do like that Miranda had a wide variety of books and she was experiencing all these different things. That's cool. I think that's really interesting. But like the common theme was that her characters were always lonely women who were either divorced or had nobody. And that's really an interesting element to explore. And I think it really benefits that at the end of the movie, she professes her love to Cyd for the first time. And you see like Cyd loves her too. It's like there's the kinship connecting between them. So I think Jessica Spence was the best in the movie. Rebecca Spence, I think she was the best. She just had the most going for her. There's a really cool character arc where she actually learned to grow up, as opposed to Cyd, who just pretty much had an experience and didn't really grow from it. You just feel like she does like Katie. She wants to be with Katie, but she goes back home, not having really changed from the experience. And I think that's okay, but it doesn't make for that much cinematic storytelling. It's just kind of bland, which again could be the point. I could be completely off about what the point of this movie's trying to be. But as it stands, I think Princess Cyd is a really interesting approach to talking about growing up that doesn't really hit its mark, doesn't make you buy the romantic connections well, and maybe gets a little too preachy about having a crisis of faith and being a writer and what that all connects into your real world. It's okay. It's kind of ham-fisted at times, but Jesse Pinnock and Rebecca Spence give really good performances, and cool. That's Princess Cyd, a pretty fun coming-of-age romance story. That's not going to work for everybody, but it is 96 minutes, so maybe check it out if you want to. So that's going to do it for this rendition of Romantic Tales. Now, thank you guys for watching this video. Be sure to like and subscribe to the channel. As always, you can check me out on Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter, and I will catch you in the next one. Have fun. Stay safe. Good luck.